And the fourth and final question, how do we rest in times of unrest? Well, I'd like to first ask, what makes now a time of unrest? How do you see it? Because maybe you see unrest from your perspective, but maybe somebody else doesn't see unrest. Maybe somebody else is at rest or they feel okay with the way things are going. Rest or unrest, a time of conflict or a time of peace, whose perspective are we looking from? Because it's a big world, right? And is there ever a time in this world where everywhere there's peace, or everywhere everyone is at rest? And on the flip side, was there a time in this world where everywhere in the world there was war and conflict? I think it's safe to say that at any time in the history of this world, there has always been conflict. There has always been wars, political unrest, all kinds of atrocities, and fighting among people. Not only among people, even among animals. The animal realm is a realm of conflict. Isn't that true? As Buddhists, as Zen practitioners, we may hope for the world to have world peace. Many people, regardless of their faith, regardless of where they're from, they hope for world peace, pray for world peace. And that's a wonderful thing. The more people who have that intention, more likely there'll be more people working towards peace. Like we said with the first question, when we have a mind that's wholesome, we create a condition. We create a world for ourselves and for others that's more wholesome. When the mind is unwholesome, we create a condition for ourselves and for the world that is unwholesome and that's filled with suffering. But it can help to have a realistic look at the world and know that there's always going to be conflict. That's just the condition of humanity. Conflict is the condition of living beings. We experience conflict outside of ourselves, we experience conflict with others, and we also experience conflict within ourselves. Even with our thinking, our previous thinking could be in conflict with our present thinking. And our present thinking could then be in conflict with our future thinking. We may have a lot of different views and experiences, and maybe a lot of it we haven't even organized or examined. So we think that we're doing good, we think that we're good people, but we actually have a lot of conflict within us that causes us to do bad things and harmful things. In the Agamas and the Nikayas, the foundation teachings of Buddhism, there was a sutra that says there was a person who asked one of the monastics, why is there so much conflict in the world? Why is there so much fighting? And that, I believe it was a monk, answered, fighting is due to obsession with sensual pleasure. And fighting and conflict is due to obsession or clinging to views. And that fighting and conflict is due to greediness, possessiveness, and defensiveness of ourself and that which belongs to ourself. The Buddha, in many instances, pointed out that this world is a world of conflict. Our minds are full of conflict. But the practice itself is to be free from conflict. The practice is to be free from conflict, even in the midst of a world that's burning with conflict. So it's not easy. The practice is not easy, but with awareness, with this practice that you're doing every meditation session, This is really the ground of cultivating awareness, awareness of conflict. This is where we begin. We begin with awareness of our inner conflict and how we're fighting with ourselves. How the previous thought is in conflict with the next thought. In the process, we become aware of what makes our mind not at rest, what makes our mind not at ease, which is, as I just mentioned before, clinging to images, clinging to the forms of the mind. In Chinese, the word is xiang. And sometimes this word is composed of the character that stands for tree and eye. So when our eye looks at a tree, we see an image, we see the shape of the tree. This is the word xiang. That word could be translated as image or form or sign, the sign or symbol of something. If we want to experience rest and freedom from conflict, it requires that we let go of these forms or we let go of these signs or symbols of the mind. There's a saying by Chan Master Changlu Zongzi in his instructions on sitting meditation, which is the teaching or the writing that was eventually used by Dogen, edited and used in the Japanese Zen tradition. It's a very central teaching. And within this text, he says that in addition to giving rise to a compassionate mind, in addition to giving rise to the intention to help all beings be free from conflict and free from suffering, we need to, and as the Chinese says, 放射诸相,修习万事, which means to let go of all signs and to put all of our affairs to rest. And in this context, it means mental affairs. So to let go of all signs and symbols of the mind and to put all of our psychological affairs, all of our mental busyness to rest. Well, first, we need to be aware of the signs. We need to be aware of the symbols. And likely, when we look at the world and all of the conflicts around us, within us, it could be larger societal conflicts, it could be conflicts within our family, our household, that we first become aware of these signs and symbols in our mind. And oftentimes, we're clinging to the signs or to the ideas that someone is wrong and someone is right. And we take sides. We believe strongly that someone has the right answer, someone doesn't have the answer, or that someone's behavior was right and justified, and another person's behavior was wrong and unjust or not justified. Once we take sides, our mind becomes polarized. We become immediately immersed in conflict because we generate like or affinity with who we think is right, and we generate dislike or anger or hatred to those we think are wrong. Once we take sides, it's very easy to get caught in conflict. And we very easily end up ruminating about what we've seen or what we've heard or what we believe. But is it true that one side is completely just and completely right and the other side is completely wrong? If we look closely at each situation, doesn't everyone have their own beliefs and ideas that they're the right, they're in the right, or they are the just ones? Don't we all think that when we get into an argument with our friends, our family, that we think we're right or we want to be right? Maybe in some situations we think that we're wrong and we're ruminating on how wrong we were. But isn't it true that no matter what the side, everyone has their own point of view, their own perspective, And everyone also has their own preferences, their likes and their dislikes, their cravings and their aversion, and their views and their ideologies. Is any one side completely right? Is anyone perfect and free from flaw? And I think we can agree that no, no matter what the side, each side has its own blind spots. Each side has its own mistakes and flaws and problems. If we can see that, and if we can see the symbols and signs of our mind just as they are, we won't be so attached to them. We'll know that these representations can't capture the whole truth, but we know from our experience that each side has its own issues. So we don't have to take sides, do we? From the Buddhist perspective, we don't need to take sides, but we can be a force of peace in resolving conflict. We can point out the problems on both sides if it's a two-sided issue. Maybe it's a three-sided, maybe it's six sides. We can be a force of peace and reconciliation if we help everyone involved see themselves, if we help point out the problems and also point out some potential solutions and help all those involved work towards peace and reconciliation. But that requires deep practice for us ourselves not to be bothered, not to be angered, or not to feel disturbed by all of the unrest that we see. And that actually, if we have rest in our mind, if we can, as the saying goes, let go of all signs and symbols and put all the affairs of our mind to rest, when we look at the world, when we look at situations, we won't see unrest. And we won't see it as terrible conflict. We'll just see it as normal. We see it as the human condition. We won't be so disturbed by it. Just kind of like grandparents looking at their grandkids fight. The grandparents, with their life experience, with their wisdom, they look at the grandkids fighting over something and they see it's just children fighting. That's what kids do as they're learning and growing. And those wise grandparents may still realize that they have fights themselves. They have little conflicts. But with wisdom, they can more quickly resolve them and not get caught in taking sides of who's right and who's wrong, but just looking at the situation saying, hey, this is a problem. This needs to be solved. What can we do about it? So, in summary, if we view the world with eyes of compassion, then we can be an instrument of peace. Because if we view the world with eyes of compassion, our mind will be at rest, which is also wisdom. Wisdom needs to be there for compassion in order to be there. If we have a wise mind that sees clearly the signs and symbols and the thoughts and ideas within it, we won't be confused by them. And we can use these signs and symbols as tools for making peace. We can use them as tools for resolving conflicts, either on a small scale, within ourselves, within our family, or a larger scale, within our workplace, or within our state, within our country, or on a global scale. So this is how we can be at rest at all times. Because at all times, conflict and unrest among living beings, among people, is normal. If we see it that way, we'll find compassion and peace within ourselves.